This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. It's a Subway to Shea series preview as the New York Mets get set to welcome in the Los Angeles Dodgers to Citi Field. And there's a lot to talk about. We're going to get right into it. But this time, today, we're going to do a little bit of a recap of what happened with the San Francisco Giants series, since there won't be a podcast until right around Wednesday when the series is over. So let's get into the recap of what happened this past weekend with the San Francisco Giants. The Mets lose the series. The Giants take 2 games from the Mets. In game 1, Reed Garrett blowing a late lead for the Mets. The Mets lose 8-7, but they got great pitching from Christian Scott. 6 innings pitched, 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. The Mets homered 3 times. JD Martinez, Mark Vientos, Pete Alonso all delivered, but the bullpen could just not keep things intact. Edwin Diaz pitched a scoreless 7th inning since he'd been taken out of the closer role. Reed Garrett came into the 8th and gave up a game-winning grand slam to Patrick Bailey. That changed everything. The Mets ended up losing 8-7. You go to game 2, Diaz gets put back in the closer's role and he blows the save. The Mets lose 7-2 in extra innings. Home runs for Starling Marte and Brett Beatty. Luis Severino, an absolute gem from him. About 5 innings pitched of perfect baseball. He pitched 7 innings. How many times are we going to see our Mets starters go into the 7th inning? It's a thing of beauty, and I hope we get to see more of that as the season goes on. He pitched 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. We go to game 3. The Mets rally in the 9th to win 4-3. They salvaged the series. We've been saying that a lot this season. Remember in 2022 when the Mets would win early all of these series? Well, the Mets are trying to salvage all these series, and that's not a good thing if the Mets want to be any part of the playoffs this coming year. But right now, they are struggling to just win series. Sean Manaea, 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 of them earned, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Harrison Bader, man, he's been clutch all season long. Another clutch hit, a 2-run single in the 9th to tie the game. And Omar Narvaez, that's right, Omar Narvaez gets the game-winning single. I can't believe that it's his first hit at Citi Field this season. And I talked about it earlier on during the podcast. I said that this homestand was going to be crucial for the New York Mets, and it's not off to a great start, losing the first 2 games to the San Francisco Giants. They take the 3rd one, but they lose this series, and now they got even more trouble coming up against the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are the best team out there in the West. We're going to get into that shortly. Then they play a 4-game set against the Arizona Diamondbacks to close out the homestand. But the Mets really do need to get on track if they have any hopes of getting into playoffs or having the conversation about being in the playoffs. The Mets need to get on track against this Los Angeles Dodgers team. And let's look at the tail of the tape. The Mets are right now 22-30, 4th in the National League East. They have not moved up at all. 33-22 for the Los Angeles Dodgers. They are first in the NL West by a lot of games. The rest of the West is just, we know the Padres are hovering around 300, around 500, I'm sorry. And, the Giants are just hanging in there. Diamondbacks not, 4th in the West. And I think the Rockies are in last place. But you look at all these stats, obviously in hitting, it's all Dodgers here. 253 batting average for them as a team, 68 home runs, 260 RBIs. The only thing where the Mets lead them in is stolen bases, which they have about 5 more stolen bases, 39-34 for the Los Angeles Dodgers. The OPS very much a big deal for the Dodgers. 759. The Mets have a 685. Not what you want to see from the New York Mets. And like I said, the Dodgers lead the Mets in batting average, home runs, RBIs. You go to the pitching, they also lead all three categories that I'm going to talk about. ERA, 342 for the Dodgers to the Mets 408. The Mets have not been able to get that lower. The strikeouts, only a couple more strikeouts. The Mets have 459 strikeouts. The Dodgers have 462. But the walks, right? The walks has always been a big problem for the Mets. They have 221 walks, and you look at the Dodgers have only given up 160 walks. So the Mets are going to have to hit their way to, scoring some runs here and putting some runs on the board and getting base runners on. The Mets have a lot of work that they have to do against this Dodgers team. And if they want to get this series, if they want to at least take 2 out of 3, they're going to have to do their best on both sides of the plate as well as pitching, because we all know the Mets struggle when it comes to getting a cohesive unit for this team, right? The Mets can hit, they don't pitch. The Mets can pitch, they don't hit. And then when the starters and the hitters are doing well, the bullpen's not doing well. So there is no margin for error against this Los Angeles Dodgers team. The Mets need to take care of business. Now let's get into the pitching probables for this series. Game 1, Tyler McGill, who's 0-2 with a 3 ERA, had a nice start against the Cleveland Guardians in his return. He'll go up against Gavin Stone, 4-2 with 3.60 ERA. Game 2, Jose Quintana against Tyler Glasnow. Quintana's 1-4 with a 5.13 ERA. He had a better start in Cleveland. That all unraveled after, of all people, Andres Jimenez had a 3-run home run to tie the game in Cleveland, but he pitched well. Besides that, just couldn't get the win and couldn't hold the Guardians off the board. He'll go up against Tyler Glasnow, like I said, 6-3, 3.09 ERA. I think Tyler Glasnow had a really good game. I don't know if it was a complete game, but he had a really good game against the Mets out in LA when they were over there on that West Coast trip. And then we have the returning David Peterson making his first start of the season. He'll take on James Paxton, who's 5-0 with a 3.49 ERA. Good season for him. A good season for this rotation for the Dodgers. Last starts for all three have not been good, but they will pitch well against this Mets lineup if the Mets lineup continues to be inconsistent. Obviously, a concern when you go up against a lefty like James Paxton because the Mets struggle against lefties. So we'll see how that all figures out. But Mets need to take 2 out of 3 here. They need to get going. And, the game that I am looking forward to, I guess, is going to be game 3 to see how David Peterson fares in his first start back against James Paxton, to see if the Mets can figure out a way to score against the lefties. But when I go into the matchups, and I want to get into those matchups for you, it all leads to that third game of the series. JD Martinez in the matchup to watch against James Paxton, 455 batting average, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, and a 1.409 OPS in 22 at-bats against James Paxton. Be on the lookout for JD Martinez as he gets that. Will be game 3. Another matchup coming out of game 3, and that is Freddie Freeman against David Peterson. Lefty on lefty, but he hits them very well. 333 batting average, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, and a 1.108 OPS in 15 at-bats against David Peterson. Now, I like to do a little segment here where we do who's hot, who's not, but I call it who's ripe, who's rotten. Let's go to who's ripe on the offense, and it's Mark Vientos, only in 3 games, but the last 3 games, 344 batting average, 2 home runs, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and a .553 OPS. Who's rotten right now? And we just talked about him, JD Martinez. So this is an opportunity for JD Martinez to get on track and to do what he has to do. But he's batting 160, one home run, one RBI, one walk, and 14 strikeouts. Oof. A 3.88 OPS in his last 6 games. He's got to get going for the Mets, and we need him to be a little bit clutch because he has not had a big, presence when it comes to big opportunities. Who's ripe and who's rotten in the pitching staff? Who's ripe? Jorge Lopez, 2.70 ERA. He's got .60 whip in 3 1/3 innings pitched. Who's rotten right now, and it sucks to say this, but for the first time on here, Reed Garrett, 0-2, 27 ERA, 6 hits, 6 earned runs, 1 home run, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts in his last 2 innings pitched. A lot of that came from that grand slam off of Patrick Bailey, but the last 2 games have not been good to Reed Garrett. 0-2 he takes with that. And before we end here, a couple of Los Angeles Dodgers to look out for. Players to watch on the Dodgers team. On offense, Teoscar Hernandez. He's 7 for his last 18, 3 doubles, 1 home run, 1 RBI, 4 walks, 3.89 batting average, and a 1.244 OPS in his last 6 games. And on the pitching staff, former Met, you remember him? Anthony Banda has a 0 ERA, .82 whip, and 2 Ks in the last 3 2/3 innings pitched. So they are your Los Angeles Dodgers to watch during this series. And that's going to wrap it up for this series preview for the Mets and the Dodgers. Make sure you are doing this. Make sure you're subscribing to the Subway to Shea YouTube page. Make sure you like this video, get some more eyes on it. Leave comments, leave questions, whatever you have. I'll try my best to get to them in the comment section. Also, follow the Subway to Shea podcast on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. Follow me, Anthony Rivera, on X at AntRivera86. And like I said, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe on Spotify. You can subscribe on YouTube. Do all those things. For Anthony Rivera, this has been a Subway to Shea series preview. And always remember, like I always say, let's go Mets.